Last time on Hasta, Alaska, we were in Mexico's tourist capital, Cancun, exploring hidden cenotes and chillaxing on the beach. This time we're leaving behind the Kombi and Little Alaska, and we're heading to a tropical Caribbean island for a backpacking adventure.
We're in Cuba! Woo! We've just left our terminal and we're walking to Terminal 2 because that's where you get the bus into town. I think we're the only ones doing that, everyone else is getting taxis, but this option is going to cost us $1 and to get a taxi is $25, so who's winning? Woohoo!
Cuba has long been catering to the tourist scene, but we don't travel like your average tourists. If you're coming with us, we'll be ditching the tourist currency and trading them in for local pesos. We'll be travelling with the locals, eating with the locals, and drinking with the locals. With or without the Kombi, this is Kombi life. Let's go exploring. Cuba's capital is a photographer's dream. The streets are literally teeming with life, and as imports are so restricted, treasures from the 50s are still abundantly in use in this unique time capsule which is Havana. The frustration for locals, however, is long waits for supplies and the kind of variety in stores which is, well, limited. This is the mayonnaise aisle. We decided that instead of trying to cook, that we'd eat every day at one of the thousands of windows where Habaneros sell snacks and refreshments. The food is ridiculously cheap and the conversation just as good.
Help me out, babe, I don't understand.
In the heat of the day, we'd follow the crowds to find a sugarcane press.
Drinking some sugarcane juice. Some guy just had 3 glasses to himself.
If you fancy something a little harder, you can enjoy an ice-cold Cuban beer or a freshly crushed mojito in one of the many locals bars. Then just sit back and try and understand Cuba a little better. If you can.
There's a big group of us and we're trying to find a bar just to have a drink, and we're with the Cuban guy and he's been stopped by the police because apparently you're not allowed to hang out with tourists. That's all I know.
If you want to get off the streets of the city, you could check out some of the more stereotypical Cuban culture. Here, in one of these air-conditioned cigar lounges, you might just catch a glimpse of an old hand at work.
Este es más suave. El Montecristo es medio y este es suave.
Tranquila, no, lo voy. Venga, adentro. Duro. Así. Hecho eso, sí.
Cubana.
Cubana. Hasta allá fue el lugar.
Back in Old Town Havana, amongst the socialist propaganda, we were walking miles every day, discovering Cuban culture on the streets and overhead. our preferred pastime, finding the locals' favourite hidden eateries. Fish and rice, $1.50 meal. Every afternoon, boys would carve out their space in the city to pursue their love of sports, baseball being the national obsession. However, our personal favourite was the child's street boxing. Check this out.
Mum's like, yeah, you can do it, you can do it. He's like, I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it.
I think this little Rocky was pretty relieved that he didn't have to go another round. To get a break from the punchy pace of the city, we stepped out onto Havana's famous Malecón. The 8-kilometre oceanfront walk is the perfect place for friends and lovers to take in the sea breeze. However, oddly, on this day, we found ourselves joining a dog funeral. On the Malecón, we learnt how surf-loving Cubans used the foam insulation from old freezers as bodyboards, and also a thing or two about spearfishing. This guy free dives every day down to depths of up to 80 feet on a single breath with his homemade spear gun. Later, we were invited to the home of a nice lady that we'd met for a real home-cooked Cuban meal. Coincidentally, we learned that her son was sadly lost while spearfishing in this same spot. Tragically, he became trapped under one of the passing container ships. The family did want to invite us to stay, but they weren't allowed as they didn't have the necessary license. All visitors to Cuba are required to stay in either a hotel or a licensed private house, or casa particular, which are very nice and come with a breakfast spread that will likely fill you up most of the day. And they usually cost between $10 and $20 per night. Let's go exploring. One way to save on accommodation expenses is to sleep whilst you travel, so we decided to take the train down to Guantanamo.
maybe 24-hour journey, maybe it's 20 hours, maybe it's 17 hours. We have no idea how long this journey is going to be.
Bought the essential supplies.
We've got some fudge. We've got, what else did we get? Whole coconut pie for 90 cents. We've got 2 pizzas for 90 cents. And we got
The most important item.
a bottle of really sweet wine made with honey. And it was about $1.50. It's actually quite good.
The 2 pizzas, a whole coconut pie and a bottle of port for under $5. Should be pretty good.
Hopefully we make it.
Okay, in the first minute we've had our food raided by cockroaches. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. Don't put the food on the floor. National Rail. Travelling by rail has a charm all of its own, especially in a country like Cuba. However, we searched the whole train and we were the only tourists on there. Even most Cubans prefer to avoid the tracks, and we were starting to see why. Astonishingly, we had to pay for 48 seats between the 2 of us, as we were foreigners, and it still worked out cheaper than a tourist bus. One of the great things about travelling is the lack of rules that you might find at home. Things like hanging out at the back of the train and drinking a carton of rum with the conductor, for example. Train's broken down, and they're bringing another train, another engine to put in the train or to tow us on. So there's tentative reports that we might arrive at 10 o'clock tomorrow night. There's also reports we might arrive the day after tomorrow. We have to spend the entire weekend on this train. The lady in front just squashed a cockroach which exploded all over Sean.
I went to the toilet and there was a poo. It was just sitting there. It was pitch black. I had to put the lighter on to see what I was doing. I held my breath. It was so disgusting. Oh.
I'm gonna hold it. I'm gonna pee out the window. So we settled in for a long and constipated night. As day broke, we got to experience the true magic of travelling by train.
So we started here, all the way down, now we're here, and we're going to
Guantanamo. It's a long way. No wonder it takes 24 hours.
By this point, our $5 of supplies had run out. But on a Cuban train, that's not really a problem.
La viña 10 pesos, agua quente.
Cuba was getting more interesting with each passing mile. What we were seeing was just a tease of what was coming up in the south, and we could hardly wait to go exploring. Next time on Hasta, Alaska, we go hitchhiking on the dangerous mountain roads of Cuba's southern tip, where we have a close encounter of the skinny dipping kind. We'll be stepping out of the city and into rural Cuba. We're going exploring. Do you want to come with us?
I haven't done my makeup today, so. We're squeezing in. How's our voltage? 12.3? Okay, good. Come here, Hank. Come on, Hank. Come here, good boy. Good boy, Hank.